Hey everyone, today we're going to go the Endgame Bloodmage Choir of the Storm build. This build is super fun and can totally destroy all of the content in the game. So if you're unfamiliar with the Choir of the Storm, trigger Lightning Bolt on critical hit. Also ignores enemy monster lightning resistance when we deal a crit, and this thing gives us a big chunk of lightning resistance as well. So it's super fun. The idea is we're going to use Spark as our main skill, which is going to have 100% crit rate, and then it's going to proc our Choir of the Storm for us. So we're on the Blood Mage for this one here. So we're going to take advantage of Vitality Siphon, so we get spell damage leached as life. Going to come over here for our base crit chance to be 15% for spells. This is going to enable us to get a 100% crit rate on all of our skills reasonably easily. I've gone over here on the right side as well, so we prevent 25% of the hits. And we've come down here to gain additional life equal to 100% of the item energy shield on our body armor. So the idea is reasonably simple for this build, guys. You're going to spam out your Spark, it's going to land crits, and it's going to spew out a ton of these lightning bolts. So let's get into the skills first. So Spark is going to be our main skill that we're going to use to actually proc our Choir of the Storm. So you want a max level one here with the +1 from Corruption. And now I've gone for the Inhibitor. We'll get into that a little bit later, but this means we cannot consume the infusions with our Spark. We've got +1 level from our support. We've got projectile acceleration 3, so we get more damage and projectile speed. Gone for pierce 3, so we can pierce all targets with our Spark. And lastly, I've gone for elemental focus for the additional 25% more damage. So we've got what, 700 and almost 740,000 on the tool tip here. That's not really too important. Obviously, it's a reasonable number, but we're going to be proccing our lightning bolt every time we land a crit. So we obviously have stacked up our crit chance to be 100%. We'll get into the damage scaling in a little bit, but that is then going to proc our lightning bolt skill. So Lightning Bolt, I think Spell Cascade is a must for this skill. It just makes boss clearing and clearing maps just super easy. Now you do get the 30% less damage. So if I take it out, for example, you do get quite a bit more damage, but we're basically getting 3 times the amount of lightning bolts using Spell Cascade. So I do highly recommend using this one. I've gone for elemental focus here now because this thing does have pretty high shock chance. You could just sub this out for anything else that gives you more damage. It doesn't really feel necessary to use shock on this build personally, but you can totally sub this one out if you do want to have some shock as well. Now, we'll go into why I have efficiency on here. So this is 40% less skill cost. We'll go into that in a second, but I've also got concentrated area for more damage and less area of effect. And then I've got Zenith 2 for mana cost efficiency and more damage while you're above 90% of your maximum mana. So this is both for mana cost efficiency and maximum mana. Now, normally this thing wouldn't consume mana, but because we're going to run Archmage on this build, it will end up consuming mana every time it goes off. So that is the reason that we have the 40% skill cost here, as well as the mana cost efficiency. Now, this thing also gives us more damage, so it's pretty nice anyway, but if you are feeling good with your mana sustain, you could take this out and just put more damage, or cooldown reduction is also really good here. This just makes it feel nice and consistent because as I said, we are going to use Archmage to scale up our damage. So Archmage, again, we've got level 20 on the skill gem, +1 from corruption. Now I've got +3 from support, so I've got the +1, and I'm also using Uhtred's or augury on this, so +2 level. If the skill is supported by exactly 2 other support gems. So this is the other one, and then I've just put this one on because I didn't really have anything else that fit here that didn't cost more spirit, and I just don't have extra spirit, so I've just gone with break more armor. If you do have extra spirit to spare, you put mana regeneration on here instead, but it's not really necessary the way that we've set this thing up. Now, as you can see, I also have Spellslinger here. I don't actually really use Spellslinger on this build. What I've done is I just put an additional arc in here just to have like an extra nuke button that you can spew out like, what, 4 or so of these things all at once. Again, I rarely use Spellslinger on this build, so Spellslinger 1 not necessary. You could put anything else here if you wanted. Again, it's really unnecessary, but I've just put more damage, +1 level, more damage, and more energy gain. Again, this is not necessary. Now, life remnants comes from the skill tree over here. We get life remnants for free, so that's really nice. And I've just got increased effect and chance for an additional remnant, and that can be collected from further away. Now, the reason I don't have any other supports in here is I don't have any more spirit to spare. As you can see, we're using pretty much all of the spirit that we have available to us here. So now you can stack more spirit on the build if you really want to. I don't think it's necessary to go any higher than 168, and we'll get into that as well. So Archmage, and the final piece of the puzzle here is cast on crit. So we are going to go cast on crit with Arc for additional single target damage. This is nice to help with clear as well. But yeah, this is mostly for single target damage. Now I've also got powered by Verisium in here. Now this is the reason that our Spark has the inhibitor. So I want all of these Verisiums to go towards our arc that is spewing out, so it gets the 200% more damage when lightning infused. So that's the reason that we have the inhibitor on here. Otherwise it would steal it and all of our sparks would be frost, or cold infused, which you totally can do, but that's not really what we're going for here. So then I've got 40% less cost. Now, this is really useful to have in here. Not only does it make the arc cheaper, but it also makes the powered by Verisium cheaper. It means we don't have to spec into as much ward as we otherwise would have to. This is really, really nice. I've just got more damage on here. Again, you could switch this out for a different damage support if you want to. And then I've got mana cost efficiency with the 30% more damage again. Again, you could sub these out for more energy gain if you wanted to. It's totally up to you. I find this setup just works really, really well, so I haven't really messed around with it since then. And the other support skill that I'm using is Orb of Storms. As you can see, I've got Flame Wall on here, but I frankly just wasn't really using it. When I was leveling up the character, I was using a Flame Wall to just get some extra spark damage. But as you can see, our spark damage is plenty high now. We don't really need it, so this is just a non-starter really. But for Orb of Storms, I've just got +1 to the limit, cost reduction, more damage, +1 level, and more damage with considered casting. So Lightning Mastery, Elemental Focus, Efficiency, and Overabundance too. So we can get additional lightning remnants out of this thing, which can then give our cast on crit arc even more power boosts. So it's really nice to just set 2 of these up just before you go into a boss battle. Then you can just spam out huge cast on crit arcs, and it just destroys bosses so quickly. So that's all of the skills. It's reasonably simple. We don't really have much else going on here. I was messing around with some other stuff, but that's not part of the build, so don't worry about those. These are the main skills that you got to worry about. It's reasonably easy to set this up. All right, so let's talk about gear now as well. So you could use the Rune Seekers if you can afford to acquire one. I'm using just a dueling one here. So we got +9 levels on this thing. So how are we getting +9? So the Legacy of Life Sprig here, the Alder's Legacy gives us +2, which is really nice. And then we just have the Hedge Witch Assandra's Rune of Wisdom as well. So this is giving us +3. Then we got +5 to level of all lightning spells. And then we got the additional +1 over here. This is, where is it? Over here with the extra mana. That is a crafted mod. And then we just have additional crit chance. So crit chance scaling here is really important. So you want crit on as many different items as you can get. And then we've just gone for spell damage and increased lightning damage. Now, cast speed as well. So that's another crafted mod. So let's talk about crit for a second. So as I said, you want as much crit chance as possible to get your spark to 100% crit. Once you've gotten your spark to 100% crit, this should just naturally be at 100% as well. Earlier on, before you have min-max gear, you can use pinpoint critical in here. That will nerf your critical bonus damage by like 30% though. So I do think you want to get rid of it as soon as you can and get your crit chance up to 100%. So Now, you might also ask about why do you not have gain as extra on your wand? Because we're gaining a ton of as extra with Archmage, we do need some increased spell damage and elemental damage coming from somewhere. So this is one place that we're getting a good chunk of it. We're also getting some from our focus here. So this one has energy shield, increased lightning damage +2. I actually crafted this one myself. So it's got a critical spell damage as well as crit chance, cast speed, and then just the lightning damage and the 2 energy shield affixes, like we said. So if you guys want me to do a video showing you how I crafted some of this gear, just let me know with a comment down below. But yeah, this one I crafted myself. It took me a few tries, so it wasn't dirt cheap to do. But the good news is the bases at the moment, the +2 level or spell skill bases, are really cheap to buy, especially if you go a 1 socket. This is obviously a 2 socket, but the 1 sockets are very, very cheap to buy, and you can sort of mess around with the craft to try and figure it out. But okay, so yeah, the crit chance is really important. Cast speed is obvious, and then crit damage is really nice, and then just the energy shield. And we'll get into the energy shield conversion a bit later, but so boots, I've gone for movement, speed, and just resistances, and the +15 to spirit. So this is really important on our build. We need to get to 168 spirit minimum to be able to use our Archmage and our cast on crit together. The extra 2 is, it's just 2 extra. It is what it is. So on the boots, I've gone for the socket of increased movement speed and just energy shield. Now, if you need to put extra resistances in here just to round out your resistances, you can totally do that. This was just also extra energy shield. I didn't go over that. And this is just a socket bound, so I can't remove it. +1 suffix. This is how we got the 4 suffixes on this one. So, and yeah, we've just gone for the increased energy shield here. So energy shield is being converted to mana in the skill tree. We'll go over that in a little bit. This is another piece that I crafted as well. So we want spirit on this one. We want our resistances, and then we just want high energy shield. Now we have the warding rune of hearts. This is pretty important. Body armors gain 5% of maximum life as extra maximum runic ward. So if we just get rid of that for a second, you can see we have 144 runic ward. This is the main place our runic ward is coming from. We do have a little bit coming in from the gloves, and we'll go over that in a second. But this is the main place the runic ward is coming from. This one rune gives you a ton. It's really nice. We've also got damage taken from mana before life, so we'll go over that a little bit when we go into the skill tree as well. But you could just run mind over matter and take this off, and just put anything else you like in here if you really want. And then we've just got a perfected iron rune in the last one. So again, just as high energy shield as we could get. And then we take out resistances. You can see I was severely lacking in chaos resistance. So I used one of the, I can't remember what it's called, but the item that converts the energy, the resistances to chaos. It's reasonably simple. This one did take me a bit of currency to craft. It wasn't super, super easy, but I did craft it myself, so we didn't have to go fishing on the exchange for that one. Now this one I did purchase, as I did try and craft a pair of gloves like this myself, but I sat there and I must have chaos spammed like, I don't know how many, 1,000 chaos orbs, and I could not get the +2 level of all projectile skills to show up. So I just ended up buying one of these off the market. So if you can't afford, if you're sort of newer into the end game and you can't afford a piece like this, it's okay. You don't need to go to the +2 level of all projectile skills early on. It's important to note that the lightning bolt is not actually considered a projectile. It's AoE, trigger, lightning, and repeatable. It's not actually a projectile, so it doesn't get bonus levels from this. So it's not strictly required for the build to function. However, it does give us a good amount of extra damage for our spark and our arc on cast on crit. So it is really nice. I've gone for projectile speed, which is also nice for our spark. Increased crit chance, maximum life, increased critical damage bonus, and maximum mana. Again, this item is not perfectly min-max, but it's all tier 1 and tier 2s, and it's the it's the best one I could afford at the time. In here, we've got increased life cost efficiency. So you don't strictly have to go for this, but it does feel nice because you will eventually start eating into your life as you go. With the skill tree node here, where we get the percentage spell damage leached as life, though, you can afford to take this out if you really wanted to and put something else here. You could get cast speed or really anything else, but I do think it's pretty nice to have in. It just makes the build feel pretty consistent. I think it's really nice. And this one's socket bound. This is the one that allows us to roll the marksman modifiers. So if you can get the +2 to level of all projectile skills, it does give you a decent amount extra damage on the setup here. So the helmet, again, we've just gone for crit chance as well as energy shield. And we've gone for resistances, and that's basically it. You could put rarity. As you've noticed, I don't really have rarity on pretty much any of my items here. You can go for rarity. You can sub one of these affixes out for rarity if you want. For this one, I've just gone for high energy shield. I've allocated Cooked, which is 60% crit damage, and we get reduced armor evasion and energy shield, which we don't really care about on this build, so it's mostly just 60% increased crit damage bonus, which is nice. You do need the Raven Touched Shard to be able to allocate Cooked on your helmet. This thing is like, I think it's about 90 or so div, so it's reasonably expensive. It's an end game sort of thing. You won't be able to afford that straight away, but it's really, really valuable to put on your build to just get 60% extra crit damage is just really, really nice. So we've gone crit chance, maximum energy shield, and just resistances. Nothing really crazy going on here. I've put in increased cost efficiency, so this is for life as well as mana. So this is really nice. Again, it's not strictly necessary. You could put 3% extra percentage of mana if you really wanted to in here instead. I've just gone for cost efficiency. It makes the build feel pretty nice and consistent. Let's talk about the rings. So these are not fully min-maxed rings, but I've gone for mana stacking rings. These ones cost me, I think, about 60 div when I purchase them. The price may vary. We can have a look on the market, but I've just gone for increased maximum mana. You can see we have the two 8%ers on here: mana cost efficiency, mana regeneration, int, and maximum mana. These are just mana stacking rings, as much mana as I could possibly get. This one is similar. It's just got some strength on here as well. This one's got higher mana regeneration rate, but lower mana cost efficiency. But that's basically what these rings are. So now, there are rings in the game that give you +1 level of all spell skills. They are incredibly expensive and incredibly rare. So that is an optimization you can make on the build, but they're just so expensive. Even even after dumping a ton of divines into my gear, this is, they're just so expensive. It is what it is. But instead of going rings like this, you could do mana increase maximum mana with things like crit chance, crit bonus, spell damage. You can get a ton of good stats on rings for this particular build, but because we're using Archmage, we do want to stack our maximum mana here. So now our maximum mana could be higher still. We're only about 5,400 at the moment. That could be higher, but it's totally high enough to clear all the content in the game. You don't need to go even crazier than that, but you can if you want to, and if you have the the divines to spend. So I'm using Bloodmage here. I got this out of Ritual. I didn't purchase this one. You do not strictly need Mage Blood to make this build work. However, it is a nice bonus to have. So this is how it rolled for me. I got Legacy of Jade, which is the evasion plus 2,000. So we're actually sitting at 25% evasion just sort of by default there because of this thing. Not really necessary. And I've got 2 Legacy of Silvers. This is skill speed. Again, not strictly necessary, but nice bonus to have. And then we got Legacy of Diamond, which is crit chance. So this is helping us reach the 100% crit chance on our skills. So this is really nice. Again, it's not strictly required, but definitely nice to have on the build. The rare belts do have a lot of caster stuff this patch, so you don't need this. You could get more damage while well, flask effect is going on. You could get cooldown reduction, which is really nice as well. And there's mana regeneration, right? There's a ton of stuff you can get on here. And you can also just get resistances and other stuff like that to help your build. You can even just stack more maximum mana on one as well. So again, not strictly required, but definitely nice to have. My flasks are nothing special at all. I've just gone for as much recovery as we can get. Nothing really special. I've gone for a stun charm, a freeze charm, and right of the passage, I'm using the Spirit of the Owl just for more damage. You could go the Spirit of the Bear for more defense if you want, but I've just gone for this one, and it feels pretty nice. It just gives you a nice bonus damage after you've killed a rare or unique enemy. Now, as you've noticed, I don't have any rarity on my gear whatsoever. You don't need it. This thing is giving us 15%. This is the only character sheet rarity that I have. So typically what I do is try and run maps that have high rarity because I don't have any on my character. And I don't know, I've been able to function in the end game without a struggle realistically. So it's pretty nice. So that is the gear setup here. So the idea is crit chance. Then we want to stack up as much energy shield or mana on our gear as we can. Not all of my gear pieces have mana, but most of them have a decent amount of energy shield. If they don't have energy shield, we do have some maximum mana on them. And yeah, so that is that with the actual gear items. In terms of min-maxing the build even further than this, we could eke out some more stats. Again, the rings, we could get the +1 level. You can also corrupt a Choir of the Storm to get +1 level of all skills. So that is something you can do too. Those sorts of Jade Amulets are very expensive on the market. They're like 2,000 for a good one, which is pretty crazy. So I don't recommend going like that. The good news is the Choir of the Storm is actually dirt cheap. So to get this build started, you really don't have to spend much at all. So if we have a look, the cheapest ones available are like 100 Exile. So you can get the build started, and this is level 19, so it's only one level below maximum. Obviously, the lightning resistance is going to be a lot lower on the dirt cheap ones, but even this, like 120, 93%, level 19, it's you can start the build for cheap, and you don't need things like Mage Blood to really get this going. You don't specifically need the mnemonic rings, but they are sort of nice to have. Okay, so let's get into the passive trait as well. So we're on the Bloodmage. I went over this before, but we have a 15% base crit chance for our spells using this node over here. Gone for Vitality Siphon to get the spell damage leashed as life. This is really, really nice for keeping yourself alive. We get life remnants for free. And then we have the life loss from hits is prevented, which is nice. And then we also have the additional life coming from our equipped energy shield. So the energy shield is basically converted over to extra life. So as you can see, I've only got 4,300 life. It's not crazy, not crazy high. We haven't life stacked much, but we really don't need to on this build because we are... Oh, that looked... Oh, what's going on? Have you guys ever seen the tree bugging out like this before? Oof. All right, let me reload it. Okay, looks a bit better now. I don't know what was happening there before. So we come up here for spell damage, go up through the middle to get crit chance and crit damage. We want to do a little detour over here. 4 points for 60% spell damage is worth it, I think. We've come up here for more crit chance and crit damage. So obviously we're stacking crit chance and crit damage as much as we can. We've come over here for the jewels slot. We'll go over the jewels in a minute. Come up here for pure power for 10% more maximum lightning damage. You also get the increased lightning damage nodes along the way. Each one is 12%, so that's a decent amount of increased damage as well. We've come through here to get Ether Flow for more mana regen, but this is one of the more important nodes because we're mana stacking 3% increased spell damage per 100 maximum mana, so we're getting quite a bit of value out of this particular node. I've gone for raw mana as well for an additional 8% increased. I've also gone for Eldritch Battery, so this node by itself is giving us a ton of extra damage. Now, this converts all of our maximum energy shield to maximum mana instead, but then we'll double the mana cost. So mana cost for our skills is reasonably expensive on this build, but if you set it up correctly, it's really not too much of an issue. If you take this off, you can use energy shield. Let me show you quickly. So if we actually just take this off and we just have a look, it basically it almost halves our damage. Not exactly half, but it takes like 300 odd thousand damage away. So I like running this. Now, you can run mind over matter for defense if you are struggling with staying alive, but once you get the build set up, I don't really struggle too much. The only times I ever die is if I'm sprinting and I don't see an enemy and I fall over. This thing will reduce your mana recovery rate by 50%, so it does make your mana regen quite slow. You can work around it with nodes like mana cost efficiency over here. It's 5 extra points, though, to reach it. There's also some over here, mana cost efficiency. So if you wanted to take some damage nodes out and go for more mana cost efficiency and put on mind over matter, that is an option. However, I've found that as long as you're setting things up correctly here, it's not really strictly required. If you find yourself dying too much, just go with that. So we've taken some extra intelligence nodes. Now, this is not strictly necessary. You could maybe take these two out and put them really anywhere else that you wanted to. So the interesting tech that we've got going on over here, let me show you. We're using from nothing passives in radius of chaos inoculation can be allocated without being connected to your tree. This one is reasonably cheap. Stuff like conduit and Eldritch Battery, they're expensive. This one is reasonably cheap, so you can actually pick one of these up. Now, why do we want to do Chaos Inoculation? Because we're using a Time Lost Sapphire over here. We get crit damage and crit spell damage, as well as crit chance, and triggered spells deal increased spell damage. Now, you don't have to go for a max roll. One of these is a little bit expensive, so you don't have to start with a max roll. You could go with something a lot cheaper. And because we can allocate these without it being connected to the tree, we're getting what, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120 very, very easily. We're getting just tons of extra crit chance as well. And for any of the small passives, we can get the extra triggered spell damage as well. So these ones we're getting the triggered spell damage, these ones triggered spell damage, but we're also getting big chunk of extra damage from these nodes as well as this one over here. So this jewel by itself is getting us what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 200% more crit damage, as well as a ton of extra crit chance. I think this sort of jewel is really, really nice to have in one area of the build. This Chaos Inoculation one can also get us pure Chaos for just one node. Instead, normally we'd have to spec all the way around here. Now we can get the gain 11% extra with just one node. So that's why we've gone for Chaos Inoculation. The combination with this jewel over here is really, really nice. So in terms of the nodes we've taken, this one will actually decrease our projectile speed by 10%, but it's totally worth all the extra damage we're getting. Also, just taking a ton of extra damage from this one here, and this one will increase the spell projectile speed. So that kind of cancels the negative on that one out, and we're just getting tons of extra damage out of it instead. This one gives us some more damage as well as mana cost efficiency. Really nice. This one is just more damage as well. And then if we go down here, we've got crit chance, because we do need our crit to get up to 100%. So we're taking the crit chance nodes over here. This one is 20% reduced crit damage, but it's totally worth it for the 50% that you're getting. If you could eke out some more crit chance from a few other places, you could totally remove some of these, but that is an optimization you can make. We could have better jewels. Not all of our jewels are perfect. We'll go over some of the other ones here. Now, because I'm not running mind over matter, I've gone for 4%, and 8% damage taken from mana before life. We also have the one in here. 15% of damage is taken from mana before life. So we've got, what, just over 30% going to mana instead of our life when we get damage. So that is another defensive layer that I'm using at the moment, and it feels pretty good. I don't really feel the need to personally go mind over matter. Again, that is your call. If you find that you're dying too much, you can just sub in Mind Over Matter. Just take these 3 points out, and it's 1, 2, 3. So, you know, you can just swap them over. We've come down here. We already went over the From Nothing. We've just taken even more crit damage over here. Tons of crit damage nodes over here. A little bit of crit chance. And we've come up here for more triggered spell damage. That is giving our Lightning Bolt more damage. And then meta skills have 20% increased reservation efficiency. So this is allowing our Archmage... it affects... Which one does it affect? Which one's the meta? This one's the meta gem, right? Yeah, so it's making our cast on crit a lot cheaper. So it's a 77 spirit reservation instead. The Archmage by itself is 91. So that totals 168. So you need a minimum 168 to get both of those on your build. So that's why I've gone over here for the efficient inscriptions. So... And then we've just come down here for another jewel socket. And then we've come down here for more crit chance and crit damage. And I've got an extra one here. Again, this is strictly unnecessary. These extra nodes I've put into intelligence, you can just take them out and put them anywhere else you like. You could, if you had enough, you could come down here and go 1, 2, 3, 4 and get even more crit damage. If I took out those 3, I'd need to take out one other node from somewhere. So, I don't know, maybe we could take out the 8% damage here and go for just a ton of extra damage, extra intelligence, mana regen, cast speed, and everything. So this is a really good node to take as well. So you totally could do that. Now let's just talk about the actual rare jewels here. I don't really have the best rare jewels. This one I had in here because I was at one point using my focus for a big energy shield increase. So this is not fully min-max. We could get better jewels. This is the next optimization I'll probably make on the build, is maybe to fix up the jewels, because it would also be beneficial to have a voices on, and you could just get tons of extra crit damage and just spell damage and stuff that way. So that's another optimization we could make on the build. That's probably what I'm going to do next. This one over here is spell damage, crit, and 3% of maximum mana on kill. So some mana recovery coming from there as well. If you're mapping and you're finding that your mana, sustain is not great, you can go these 3 nodes as well to get an additional 4% with some more mana regeneration rate. I don't find it's necessary, but if you, while you're progressing your build, if you think it's necessary, you can take this clump of nodes. Really, really nice. You can go mana cost efficiency as well as mana sustain with getting kills. Doesn't necessarily help your single target damage, these 3, but these ones will help that. So, and that's the main thing going on the passive tree here. Again, I've got one more down here, which is spell damage, elemental damage, and crit damage. So again, we could slot in a voices to get some more jewel slots as well. I don't have one at the moment. That's going to be something for future in the build. But yeah, that is the main skill tree here. Again, we've also got this one here, which is a Heart of the Well. I've got 2 gain as extras and a more crit damage bonus coming from these 2 as well. Again, if you didn't want to do this sort of thing with a jewel like this, you could always just come down and grab another jewel socket down here and down here. You'd need, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You need 11 more, so you'd have to take out... You'd probably take out some of these. If you weren't going to do the Chaos Inoculation tech, you could take out these ones and slot in a few more jewels down here. But it's up to you, really. This has felt really good the way it's set up here. I don't really feel like I need to chase more jewels. We can maybe get voices, as I said before, for more jewel sockets. But I don't know. It feels pretty good like this. I don't really feel like I have to do a whole loop-de-doop. Maybe it would be slightly more optimal, but I don't know. It feels pretty good like this. So this ends up being more or less a one-button build. You can always drop an Orb of Storms down for the additional infusion and for some extra lightning damage output. But for the most part, you're just going to be spamming out your Spark and everything will die. It's really, really fun build. It was fun to construct. It's fun to use in maps. You can totally use it for bossing as well. Kills bosses. Most of the bosses in the game, they just die so quickly. I've played this build for expeditions as well as 200% delirium maps, all the pinnacle bosses. I mean, yeah, super fun build, guys. So if you guys are interested in seeing how I crafted some of this gear too, just let me know with a comment down below. Can totally show you how I crafted some of these items. I didn't craft every single one of these. I did buy some of them, but I did craft specifically some of these items. I tried to craft this one. I just had such bad RNG that I decided to buy one, you know. But yeah, so let me know with a comment down below. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for checking out this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Hope you have a fantastic, amazing day.